Hi, everybody. This is Professor Tannenbaum, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about habit formation. Now, a lot of us have habits that we form without realizing it, and where it's really not a big deal in our lives. Some people may consistently put on the left sock versus the right sock, or they always put water on the toothbrush, then toothpaste, then a little bit more water. Little odd, maybe not necessary, but certainly not a huge deal in your life. But there are other habits where people really are going to want to change it. Maybe you want to quit smoking or foster a healthier diet or exercise more often. So our story begins with a man named Eugene Pauly. When Eugene was 70 years old, he suffered a bout of viral encephalitis, which did a huge number on his brain. Among other things, it completely destroyed his hippocampus, which, as you may imagine, pretty much wrecked his memory. His personality was still intact, his intelligence was intact, but he had major problems with remembering old information and with forming new long-term memories. However, researchers working with him did notice something very unusual about his behavior, which was that his habits remained completely intact. For example, anytime a person entered the room, he would stand up and greet them. His memory was shot, which meant that if they left the room and came right back in, he would do it again. As another example, he was unable to draw a map of his home, but when he was hungry, he had no problem going to the kitchen and getting himself a snack. Needless to say, researchers wanted to figure out what was going on here, that his habits had remained intact. And it turns out that this was related to a part of the brain called the basal ganglia, which had not been affected by the encephalitis. Separately from this, other researchers were looking at the role of the basal ganglia in rat behavior. One of the ways that they could do this is to put a rat into a maze that is shaped like the capital letter T, where there's chocolate at one end of the T. So they put the rat in, and the first time the rat goes in the maze, he just explores the maze as he walks around, he sniffs the walls, and as he's doing this, we can see that we're having consistently high levels of brain activity as he's taking in all of this new information. The sights, the sounds, the smells. But after a while, he runs the maze a number of times, we start to see a different pattern of activity begin to emerge. We get this initial click. That's when the door raises to let the rat into the maze. So there's this spike of brain activity like, oh my gosh, I'm going into the maze. I'm so excited. But then the brain activity decreases quite a bit because that rat's going on autopilot. He knows exactly where he's going. He doesn't have to think too hard about it, just like you might get in your car and drive somewhere familiar and not have to think very hard about how to get there. And then, of course, we see this burst of activity at the end when the rat finally gets to the chocolate, because apparently rats love chocolate. Based on this, we get this idea of what is called a habit loop. The components here are a cue, a routine, and a reward. What happens is that at some point you do a behavior which proves rewarding. Maybe you're feeling a little bit hungry, you get a snack, and then you're no longer hungry. But if this happens often enough, then whenever you experience that hunger cue, you start craving the reward, which triggers you to become more likely to engage in this routine. And this kind of habit loop formation can happen all the time without our being consciously aware of it. For example, a lot of you probably have the routine of reaching for your phone anytime you feel a little bit of boredom. Sites such as Netflix will use this idea of habit loops to get you to watch more shows. You finish one episode of a show, and it starts to autoplay the next one. They're hoping that this little preview of the next episode will be a cue for you so that you'll be like, oh my gosh, I wonder what happens next. And this will trigger the routine of continuing to watch because that preview craved the excitement of the show. Another example is any kind of company that has a reward system designed to get you to buy more of their stuff. Starbucks, for example, will give you points for every dollar that you spend in their stores, but they will also issue special challenges designed to get you to go even more often. So here we have someone who's been offered bonus stars if they make purchases a certain number of times in 1 week. Starbucks' main goal here is for them to become a routine part of your daily habit. They want you to get to the point where you don't even have to think about going there. It's just get up, get dressed, brush your teeth, stop at Starbucks on the way to school. Now, as a second bonus for them, they're getting your data. They know what drinks you tend to order, what sizes, what time of day. Do you use the drive-through or go into the store? And they can absolutely use this data to increase sales even further. This person, for example, will only get stars if they go 5 days in a row. Maybe Starbucks knows that they usually go 2 or 3 times a week, so they're hoping to increase it to 5. For someone else who only goes once a week on average, this challenge would be too difficult and they likely won't even try. So for that person, Starbucks might offer them points if they go 2 or 3 times in 1 week. It costs Starbucks very little, but they're still increasing the odds that Starbucks will become a part of this person's routine. The thing to keep in mind with habit loops is that the cue that triggers a routine can literally be anything. For example, there are some people who always crave a cigarette after they finish a meal, or they find that they swear more often around certain friends. So if you're trying to change your habit loops and to form new healthy habits, the key here is to keep the cue and the reward the same, but switch out the routine. The first step to doing this is to figure out what your triggers are in the first place. If you're eating junk food every night before bed, you'd have to figure out why this is happening. Are you bored? Are you hungry? Is it just that you see the refrigerator? Going along with this, you need to identify barriers to success so that you can think about how to get around them. If you want to foster a healthier diet, you need to think about why you're not already doing that. Is it because healthy foods are expensive? Is it because you're not a very good cook? Is it because junk food is more convenient? Once you've identified the barriers, you can now think about ways to find healthy foods that are cheaper or tastier or more convenient or whatever. A second way to increase your odds of success is to break down a big habit into a small one. If someone hasn't exercised in a very long time and they start off by saying, "Oh, I'm going to go run 5 miles every day," we all know that's not going to happen. They might do it once or twice and they'll feel all virtuous about it, and then they're going to give up because they're tired, they're sore, and they haven't seen any changes in their body. They can increase the odds of success if they start small. The first day, maybe they walk around the block. After a couple of days of that, maybe they work their way up to longer distances or a faster pace. A third strategy for success is to stack new habits with existing ones. Maybe that person can plan that every time they finish a meal, they can also go and walk at least 5 minutes. Or maybe they make arrangements to exercise with a friend so that they can stack exercise with social time. And finally, it helps to formulate specific if-then plans. If someone has plans to bring healthy lunches to work every day, then they can plan in advance about what to do if they forget their lunch on a given day. If you're trying to use your phone less, maybe a plan might be, if I'm feeling bored, I will get up and I will walk around my home twice. See if that helps relieve some of that boredom. And that's it. This is a great example of how we can take psychology research and use it to improve our own lives. So I hope that you're able to do this for yourselves. Good luck and hope you all have a great day.